All right, everyone, welcome back into another props video. Give me a touchdown on the top prop bets today in both NBA and MLB for PrizePicks and Underdog. Let's go in and get into it. Now, I do just want to start out with calling out some quick updates that I've made to the 905sports.com website. I added in pick 6 and MLB in there. So if you guys want to check that out, go ahead and do that. I've also since added in the Demons and Goblins for MLB, as well as the Underdog PrizePicks. Or sorry, that doesn't make sense. The Underdog MLB cheat sheet. Okay. Just wanted to call that out. That's what I spent yesterday doing as well. So let's go ahead and start out though with the NBA today. So we're going to see that PJ Washington is going to be the best over bet that we have right now in NBA. And it's going to be a very tight slate. A lot of people are choosing to attack one game here. And I can tell that based off of the popular tab. And it does make sense. So a lot of people are going in on this Houston versus the Warriors game simply because, well, both teams need a win. And if you guys have been following NBA the past week or so, there's been more random results that have been occurring. A lot of teams just getting blown out. Thus, the lines have been more difficult to predict and whatnot. Now, yesterday, that was not the case. That was the case, but yesterday that didn't really result in bets missing as much. But it's not a good thing when games are blowing out and whatnot. Just more random results are occurring right now. So to me, it does make sense why people are chasing that game. But what I'm surprised by is that the PJ Washington fantasy score prop bet is not everyone's favorite bet. I'm surprised it's not a popular bet, and maybe that's just because it hasn't been out for that long. But I say that because a lot of people have just been chasing this green here, like with bets. That's what I've noticed about the popular tab for the most part, is that people have only been looking at the last 5, which is just mind-numbing to me. But this is an example of where, let's say you are someone that does that, I would say you could then chase that because this is the best bet that we are getting on the board. Now, we do see Draymond Green for over 7.5 points was another one that's popping up that people like. And I don't mind that as well. Again, he kind of tweeted, I think it was his podcast, where he's like, yeah, we need to beat them. We want to send them home. And I think people are buying into that. I can kind of buy into that as well. It's a decent bet. It's not over 54% likelihood to, but it's still a pretty good bet. So if you want to roll with those two for NBA, I get it. Let's go and jump on into MLB today. MLB, we are getting some pretty decent lines as it sits right now. And just another thing I want to call it that I'll be updating is I'll be doing a video kind of breaking down this tool. There's a slight nuance between the fantasy score for Underdog and PrizePicks. For the most part, it's not going to change. But what you guys are going to see when you're on the PrizePicks tab here is that I'm slightly adjusting the Underdog line for how it would be on PrizePicks, if that makes sense. So that's where you're seeing these are slightly different, and I'll get into that more in a separate video. But really what I want to see here is a lot of these lines where like Carlos Correa, where we can see that the PrizePicks line is going to be higher than all the other lines. Okay, so where it's telling us about the under, I like the fact that's telling us to do that, especially compared to Underdog where they have at 6.2. So I think that's a good bet. Spencer Torkelson then for over his fantasy score is good, kind of the opposite way, where we can see Underdog has about 6.7 on average. He's at 6, projected at 6.6. And the average sportsbook line would be favoring about 53% for him to get over 7.2. So on paper, that's a very good bet as well. From there, we are getting a lot of decent bets. I'd be fine kind of pairing these three together, but I do like Joey for over his fantasy score as well, simply because, again, we're seeing that the data kind of matches up with that. Then we could also go into Hayes here as well as Riley Green. Those are all very good bets, especially if you are someone that just wants to chase maybe some bets that are maybe just like over fantasy score prop bets, grouping them together. I get that. I get why people would maybe want to do that. So you would go Green, Hayes, Torkelson, that makes sense. And now yesterday, just as an FYI, MLB wise, so many 4 for 6 lines. It was super kind of tilted. It seemed like it was going to be a massive day, and it ended up just being a lot of 4 for 6. But that tells me that it's been pretty solid. If let's just say you bet all the ones that are over 54% likelihood, if 4 out of 6 of those are going to hit, in the long term, that's going to be, obviously that's a great edge percent wise. That's going to be profitable in the long term. And then let's just go ahead and take a peek at the Underdog props. Now these are going to basically be the same. So we're going to see Byron Buxton for under fantasy score is a decent one. That's at 7.5. So you see the slight adjustment there between PrizePicks and Underdog. It's not going to be much, but there's going to be slight. And so I am doing that for the Underdog tab as well, where I'm slightly adjusting it for what the PrizePicks scoring should be as well. So not bad one there. Again, I'm someone that plays on both sides, so we can kind of pick and choose, how to go about navigating which site or which bets are going to be the best bets on each site. So Buxton under fantasy score, here's a pretty solid one. From there, it's kind of crazy. We're seeing a lot of underdog bets favoring the over, which never seems to happen. So I don't know, maybe there's some slight edges there for you guys. But yeah, I really only like Byron Buxton the most. I mean, all these are pretty much fine on paper, right? Definitely interesting there. Do you think it's worth pointing out that underdog does give a fantasy score bump of 1 for bases on balls, just as an FYI. We're not getting any pitching props for underdog just yet, and we're not getting any great ones for prize picks just yet. I'm going to sort by prize picks line because the pitching props are going to be the highest, but we can see none of them are really popping up, and they weren't popping up for underdog as well, unfortunately. These are also adjusted for underdog and prize pick scoring on their respective tabs, but I am calling this out because I believe like the ones that have been over 54%, at least the ones I've noticed and played, have all hit. It's been like 5 for 5 thus far this season for the pitching fantasy score prop bets. And that makes sense because while strikeouts, quality starts, wins, like I feel like those are a little bit easier to predict than, let's say, stolen bases, home runs, and whatnot. Real quickly, let's take a peek into the underdog NBA tab as well. So again, guys, I don't really like messing with these blocks and turnovers ones, but we are seeing the best one then would be like Jokic for over rebounds. We probably don't need to do that. Fred VanVleet for under 11.5 rebounds and assists compared to prize picks. That's decent, but I don't feel the need to really go in on those. Let's real quickly check in on the golf tab. Not much there. We had some edges on underdog. Let's take a peek on that and see if those are still there potentially. And no, not really. I'm fine with betting Hideki for under 5 for his birdies or better if you guys are someone that plays on underdog. Benny Ann for over fantasy score I'm fine with as well. Those two make sense. We'll check the discrepancies tab real quick, and we are getting kind of an interesting discrepancy for MMA. I will say like that probably shouldn't be happening. And also another one for Allen for discrepancies for strikes, significant strikes. But this one, fight time, that seems to be a lot. Again, I'm not an MMA expert, but it seems like there shouldn't be like an almost 3 for a minute difference in MMA considering the rounds as well. That's interesting there. That I might middle with. I think there's a good chance maybe for a middle. I don't know. I don't know much about MMA. I don't want to touch on that too much, but to me, that seems like a relatively good edge. But with that, guys, let's go and get into the bet of the day. Again, Buxton for under his fantasy score, and underdog is the one I would like the most. If you want to pair that with something like this where you bet in the under, or Benny Ann for over fantasy score, do that. I'm just going to be giving out a prize pick slip today because I like the edges slightly better there. All right, so again, if you guys want to run out Draymond Green for over 7.5 points, you can. Again, I want to say that about 54% likelihood for that to hit. The same thing with PJ Washington for over his fantasy score. Those are the two best NBA bets. But for now, let's roll with the best MLB prop bets because those are the ones we're getting the biggest edge as it sits right now. So these first 3 are actually all ones that are on the popular tab. So somewhere else, the data, I hope that's just people not randomly chasing those, but the data is telling other people that those are 3 good bets as well. So, right on board with that. Let's hope that they don't chalk. Then we have this one, seemingly a good bet, especially compared to underdog. Slightly decent one here with Yon, and then Joey as well. Slight decent edge compared to underdog there. But I wanted to make this a 6 slip bet instead of a 4 slip bet. So I did kind of, as an FYI, I felt like I did kind of force in these last 2. So if there's 2 other bets that you guys like better, another bet that you like better, to make it a 5 slip bet or 6 slip bet, by all means, I would be fine with you substituting those to it. But that's going to be all for today's video. Make sure to give a like and subscribe. I do want to mention on the 9 to 5 Golf channel, I did come out with a Masters preview video. I will link that in the description below if you guys want to check that out. That would be appreciated. If you guys want access to any of the tools, head on over to 9to5sports.com. Thanks for watching, and as always, let's keep cashing.